The governor's vetoes on 3 bills no longer mean anything at all. Republicans overrode them this evening in North Carolina. Now, the particular bills this time dealt a lot with the District 9 race, where there could be another election. And it also had to do with confidentiality when it comes to campaign finance laws and the latest string of overriding vetoes. Something that will be a lot harder to do in the next few days, according to WFMY News 2's Jansen Silvers.
With their latest veto override, the GOP once again flexed their muscles and showed the balance of power is squarely in their corner. But come the new year, the Republicans will still have power, but the scales will look a lot more like this because the Democrats will be getting a lot of that power right back.
It will change the dynamic of how the General Assembly interacts with the governor.
High Point Political Science Chair Dr. Martin Kifer says this new year should be much different for how the North Carolina government makes things happen. Republicans have had more power than usual lately because of a supermajority, which can override a veto, and they've been using that power.
It also is not an unexpected thing where a party who is still going to be more or less in power wants to try and get through their initiatives as quickly as they can when there really isn't any resistance to it.
But this won't be the case come January 1st when 15 new Democrats will be seated in the legislature, which Dr. Kifer says should be a good thing for North Carolina overall. Because from a historical point of view, he says you never want either party, Republican or Democrat, to have too much power.
And that does give the governor more bargaining power, and it does mean that when it comes to negotiating over important things like the budget, they're going to have to think about the governor and what his preferences are, as well as, try and maybe reach across the aisle to find some Democrats who might be thinking in the same way about these things as they are.
And Kifer says it's really all about balance. When we can come together and compromise, that's which we will have to do now if we want anything done. That's when we are stronger as a state, but we'll see what actually happens starting January 1st.